On our desert island this week is the international concert pianist whose career has spanned 7 decades, Arthur Rubinstein. Mr. Rubinstein, could you endure prolonged loneliness?
I would like only to survive in the same condition as I'm living now. And I must say I'm grateful to Providence or to all the gods, whatever they are above us, to have reached my age in the condition I feel to be. You see, I can still run even. I can run.
Is there any one thing you would be particularly happy to have got away from?
Yes, you see, I am used by now to be asked by interviewers, who are charming people, to ask me questions, always to limit myself. They always want to take something away from me. And I object to that very, very seriously.
But to take away something unpleasant?
Well, if I must, of course, if I'm going to prison, I know that they are going to take away from me freedom, and then it might be the good food and all sort of things and so on. But then I do feel condemned, you see.
Yes. Do you listen to records?
I do, of course. Unfortunately, I have to listen a lot to my own records.
Yes. Do you listen to other people's as well?
Yes. Of course, I listen to the records because I adore music, and I discovered lately that there's quite a series of records which are really more apt to be heard in a room than the music in a concert hall.
Which music in particular?
Well, particularly, of course, all the chamber music. The chamber music, the intimate chamber music, Mozart, Haydn, Beethoven quartets, even the modern quartets, lose a lot of their impact, of their real beauty, in a large hall. It's too intimate, the sonority. That created the word chamber music.
That's an interesting point.
Yes.
On what terms are you choosing your 8 records? Are you choosing nostalgically, or to give you great performances, or music to cheer you up?
Again, you see, you pin me down to something. I'm a man of moods. I learned from my friend Picasso something very precious. I was very astonished to see him painting always the same subject for about a month or 2 months. I told him, aren't you bored to do that every day? He said, what are you talking about? He was furious with me. He said, what a silly thing to say. I change every minute. The sun is different every minute. Every day is a new life for me. Everything new again. I'm a completely different person, and this picture is every time absolutely different because I see it with other eyes. I'm another man.
I can only ask you for your choice of today. What is the first of your 8 records that you have chosen?
The first record which I chose today,
yes,
I think it was the Piano Quartet of Brahms, the A major, because it is the least popular of the 3. Part of the A major quartet by Brahms. At your request, Mr. Rubinstein, I'm not specifying which particular recordings these are, but I'm just playing the music that you ask for and not specifying the artists. Let's have your second record. What's that to be? The Beethoven Quartet, Opus 59, number 1. When I was a boy, Joachim, the great violinist, was my tutor, was my second father, really. He looked after me for years. He gave me all my education, really. I owe him a tremendous lot. And he gave me that great privilege of being able to assist at his rehearsals, quartet rehearsals. And this very quartet which I chose remained in my mind with all the remarks he made and the heavy way he played it. I cried when I heard it for the first time. And I think the second movement is one of the most incredibly beautiful ideas of Beethoven.
Part of the second movement of the Beethoven Quartet, Opus 59 in F major. Mr. Rubinstein, you were born in Poland, in a part then under Russian domination. As a very small child, did you hear a lot of music in your home?
I never heard any music at all. I had three sisters, much older than I was. They were already young ladies. They were 18, 19, and they had piano lessons, but without being very musical. And I played really better than my sisters when I was 3. I played all their pieces much better.
Where did you make your professional debut?
Professional, I wouldn't call it very professional. I was 6, and I was allowed to play in a charity concert in Warsaw. And I remember only that I played 3 or 4 pieces at that concert and thought of nothing else but a big, huge chocolate box which was given to me afterwards, and I knew that I'm going to get it.
At the age of 15, I think it was, you went to live in Paris. When did you first appear in London?
In 1910 with Pablo Casals at Queen's Hall in Sonatas.
Yes.
He had his manager from London in Vienna while he was playing there. He was an old friend of mine already then. And so he absolutely persuaded me to come to London and give piano recitals. I had a protector, a Polish Prince Lubomirski, who was ready to pay for those recitals, because in those times one had to pay to be heard. I revenge now for that, you see.
In the first years of your career, inevitably a mixture of success and failure. Did you ever know poverty? Were you ever hard up?
Terribly hard up. I was even pushed into almost suicide at the age of 20.
You went to the United States and played at the Carnegie Hall in New York. You weren't a great success on your first visit to the States.
Well, I pretend. I'm a little bit too modest about that. Actually, I had a very big success there.
Good. What do you think was the turning point in your career? What was the best thing that happened?
Well, there you are again on that limiting me. Every day was the best thing that happened. Every hour.
Yes.
Always. Still now. I wouldn't give one single moment of my life for another one.
Moving on to the 1920s, you had the reputation then of being something of a playboy. You liked the full, rich life in very pleasant places.
Well, I must say this reputation I had only in England. Because quite casually, it was really only casual, that I became acquainted with very prominent people, like Margot Asquith, Lady Diana Cooper, many of those people, see. And they took me, as a friend, they saw a lot of me. They invited me very much to dinner. I went out for dancing with the Prince of Wales, So the critics didn't trust that a man who does all that could play decently a Beethoven sonata.
Let's have your third record now. What's that to be?
A third record? Oh, yes, I remember. Winterreise, which I adored. Also, that has a sentimental memory for me because I heard it as a young boy by Arthur Schnabel at the piano and his wife, Therese Baer. They sang it in Berlin, and I was absolutely overcome. I think that was my very first absolutely shattering impression of Schubert. I never could forget that. And so when I heard a good record of it, a brilliant record of it, of course, I would miss it very much if I couldn't hear it again.
So you want to specify a singer in this case?
Fischer Dieskau had sung it, and I don't think that anybody could sing it better.
Der Wind spielt mit der Wetterfahne auf meines schönen Liebchens Haus. Da dacht ich schon in meinem Wahne, sie pfiff den armen Flüchtling aus. Ihr hätt es ihr bemerken sollen, des Hauses aufgestecktes Schild, so hätt nie mehr suchen wollen im Haus ein treues Frauenbild. Der Wind spielt drinnen mit den Herzen wie auf dem Dach, nur nicht so laut. Was fragen Sie nach meinen Schmerzen? Ihr Kind ist eine reiche Braut.
One of the songs from Schubert's Winterreise, sung by Fischer Dieskau. There can be very few countries in which you haven't appeared.
Well, I played practically everywhere, but I'm sad to say I don't play in Germany. And please, I want to state it once more, I did that very often in public. I don't go to Germany only out of respect for the dead. And unfortunately, among the dead is my whole family,
Yes.
who has been most horribly assassinated. You know, I mean, about 100 people of my family. They were very numerous.
Yes. I'm sure even in
So
Germany
that is a
your
question
feelings
of
are
respect, you see. I can't go to a country where such things happen.
Where is your base now? Where is your home?
I have now 3 homes, I must say. I have a lovely house in Paris and a small apartment where I would like to be incognito in Geneva in Switzerland, and a charming home in Marbella in Spain. See, I'm fond of the Spaniards, and I think they are fond of me too, personally.
Yes.
We get along beautifully well, and there I'm writing my memoirs.
Splendid. Let's have another record.
You make me regret all the others. It's so dreadful. You pin me down all the time. Well, that is Bartok's Concerto for the Orchestra. This again has a sentimental background for me. I have known Bartok quite well. I remember even I heard and met him the first time at the mean little tiny bit of the Aeolian Hall on Bond Street. And we talked a lot, and then I saw him in New York, very poor. You know that he died in misery. He was supported before he died by the Musicians' Emergency Fund, of which I am now, after Chrysler, the honorary chairman. It was heartbreaking. And then came the concerto which expresses all that, you see, for me. It's a great work.
Part of Bartok's Concerto for Orchestra. What's your next record?
I think the Mozart Piano Concerto in C minor.
Yes.
If you give me the many concertos of Mozart to choose from, I invariably somehow put my finger on the C minor because I think it shows the real Mozart, not the Baroque Mozart, but the Mozart who did even outdo Beethoven in some ways, in his simplicity and his incredible economy of notes, and so much music put into it.
Part of the Mozart C minor piano concerto. We've got now to record number 6. What will that be?
Are they the Nocturnes of Chopin?
Nocturnes of Chopin.
Nocturnes of Chopin. Well, the Nocturnes of Chopin would be my choice if you cruelly would just pin me down to those 8 and not 9 or 50,000 records. Especially if there's a lovely night, the moon shining, a lovely girl next to you, is better still my wife, of course.
A Chopin nocturne, and I know these recordings are anonymous, but that sounded astonishingly like you, Mr. Rubinstein. Now let's get on to record number 7.
Number 7, is that the Quintet of Schubert?
Yes.
But the Quintet of Schubert really, if you like to put it number 1, because it deserves really number 1 in my heart. You see, this is a quintet which I heard very much at night here in London when we had 2 years in succession, night after night, chamber music in the house of some friends of mine, Paul Draper and Muriel Draper. They lived in King's Road. Is that Chelsea?
In furthest Chelsea.
Far out somewhere, They had a studio, and there, you wouldn't believe it, but Isaïe, Thibault, Chrysler, Casals, Curtis, Lionel Curtis, my beloved Lionel Curtis, who's still here, and we made music till 7, 8 in the morning, interrupting sometimes with a good supper here and there, but playing. And the Quintet of Schubert was always the highlight, played by those great ones. And I must tell you quite sentimentally, I asked my wife if I am dying in a decent way, nicely going off, that she would play a record of this quintet to me, the second movement of this quintet to me.
the second movement of the Schubert C major quintet. And now we come to your last record. What's that to be?
Well, that's the sonata of
The
Schubert,
sonata
of
you were
course, the
talking
sister of the quintet. I consider him a brother. He's more male than the sonata. This sonata I played very late in my life. It belongs again to the family of the chamber music for listening at home. And I adore this work absolutely beyond anything I can say. I love to play it. It's each time a great experience and an honor to put my fingers on it.
Schubert's Piano Sonata in B-flat. Mr. Rubinstein, if you could take only one of the 8 records you've chosen, which would it be?
I think I will take the quintet of Schubert because I probably will die of boredom, in general, being only there with one record. And I wanted to die listening to it, as I told you before. Yes. So that would help both of us.
As well as your 8 records, you're allowed to have one luxury, one thing, one inanimate object, which it would be pleasant to have with you, a work of art or something quite frivolous, but nothing that's going to help you to live.
I can only think of a revolver, because I'm sure I would kill myself after 1 or 2 days.
I don't somehow believe it, but you've asked for it and you shall have it. And one book, apart from the obvious choices of the Bible and Shakespeare.
Well, I could be blindfolded and take any book out of my library because, fortunately, I have the other books in my head. Splendid. I remember them, so I don't need to read them over and over again.
Right. And thank you, Arthur Rubinstein, for letting us hear your Desert Island Discs.
Thank you very much for your patience listening to me.